Update. Would I be the a-hole if I refused to sell my house below market value? Original story. I, 27 female, own a 75% share of a house with my ex, 28 male, who owns a 25% share. The difference is due to my own savings and inheritance money that I put into the house when we bought it a few years ago. Now we are splitting up, mostly because he and I want different things, and he is unwilling to compromise to meet my needs. The house is great, and in the city we grew up in. He loves the place and would like to stay as it has emotional value to him, but due to his lower income, he isn't able to buy me out at market value. He asked I sell him my share below value, which would cost me around $40,000, so he can stay. His reasons are because I don't love the city and the house, and will be able to get something equivalent. I have ambitions to move abroad, so it's more pragmatic to buy him out because I actually want the house. I also have more savings and a much higher income, so indeed it will be easy to get a similar place on my own, while that is impossible for him. While indeed it wouldn't impact me that much to lose the money, I just don't think it's fair, as he's been having much lower living costs due to our lower mortgage, due to the money I put in, and I agreed to give him a share in the first place when I was planning to buy it alone, so he profits due to the increased market value if I buy him out. He thinks I'm an a-hole for not agreeing immediately to his plan, and all our friends and family are on his side and calling me a cold heartless witch for kicking him out after breaking up with him. So would I be the a-hole to not agree to this plan? Now for the top comments before reading the update. Not the a-hole. If your friends and relatives want him to have that $40,000, then they can all get together and give it to him. Not the a-hole. Absolutely do not agree to his demand. It is not your responsibility to take a $40,000 loss just because, what, that's what's most convenient for him? You've already put so much more into this house than he has. If there's a way to go forward with minimal or no contact with him, for example having a lawyer handle all future communications, that would be best. Do not interact with any of the friends or family he directed to attack you. Block them if possible. Them calling you a witch is crossing the line. Reframe. Am I the a-hole for not giving my ex $40,000? You are not the a-hole. Not the a-hole. Opie's question about valuing $40,000 over a 9-year relationship really goes to show how much others have pushed that idea in her head. The one and only reason that her ex has any ownership stake in the house is because Opie was generous enough to allow him to buy a share when she wanted to purchase it alone to begin with. She was already taken advantage of once by her ex right here. The ex cannot afford that house, plain and simple. He couldn't afford it when it was first purchased, and he cannot afford it now. The house should be sold to a third party at market value. An ex can take her own share and buy a more appropriate home for herself. If everyone else thinks he still deserves the house, they can give him, or lend him, the money to buy it at a reasonable rate from Opie. Not a a-hole. You don't typically give your ex a $40,000 parting gift when you break up. Breaking up is a gift itself in some situations. And now for the update. Thank you for everyone who commented at the time. Gotten a few requests for updates, so here goes. As per a comment, I told him I already gave him 9 years of my life, and I don't owe him anymore. Strangely, he was calm and asked for 3 months to find a way to come up with the money. In the end, he bought my share. I'm sure I could have gotten much more at the open market, and our original agreement in hindsight was in his favor, but I don't care for his happiness and decided to let it go. Like the house, most of the furniture was also mine, and he cried and pleaded for me to leave it behind, as he was broke and deeply in debt with not only banks but also friends and family. And like an idiot I agreed, taking pity. I only took a few items, which I stored there while I found a new place. When it came to pick it up this weekend, lo and behold, he has gotten top-end replacements for the items I did take. Broke, huh? My butt. All in all, he was just taking advantage of me, and has zero dignity begging his ex for money, furniture, and it's clear to me he was always taking and never giving back. It was a very expensive lesson. I probably was a wuss paying him off, putting my own financial stability at risk, as that's what happened, for someone who would have never done that for me even when we were together. Not the most exciting update, but I do get a fresh start in a place that is only mine. You did something out of kindness and empathy. He took advantage. Don't beat yourself up for being a good person. Be glad you are away from this taker. Good luck in moving abroad. Yeah, maybe mistakes were made, but nothing earth-shattering. Cut your losses and move on knowing that you're better off now that he's entirely out of your life. It's how I think about charity or helping people on the street. Others tell me I'm being naive, and they'll just spend it on drugs, or it's a con or whatever. Maybe, possibly, probably, but that's on them. I'm doing a nice thing, trying to be helpful, trusting and caring for people. That's how I want to live. If they are cheating on me, that's how they live. If you are untrusting and suspicious of everyone, yeah, you might be $5 richer, but that's how you're living. I'm happy. You're free now, that's all that matters. Focus on that. Yep, Opie's free and can have fresh new furniture that matches the new house and isn't tainted by a stanky ex. Way to go, Opie. Enjoy the freedom, new digs, and new things. Oh, he is still broke. Probably bought everything on credit. Don't let appearances fool you. And if he did end up borrowing from friends and family in order to buy Opie out, won't they be thrilled when he stiffs them? Next story is titled, Would I be the a-hole if I told a friend that her experience was not traumatic and that she is spoiled? I have a friend, 27, that had an agreement with her parents that they would let her live for free in a second home that they own, provided that she was in school and working towards a degree. But she dropped out of school 5 years ago and has made no plans to return, while living for free in this home. Her parents decided to sell the house last year. It was a typical home sale, and she had about 3 months to pack, move, and find a new place. She never packed or found a new place, and as a result, ended up moving in, for free, to her childhood bedroom in her parents' primary home. Her father and I frantically packed everything days before the closing, as she hadn't done anything herself. Now, she retells the story that the home was sold out from under her and that she wasn't given the opportunity to buy it. No way she would qualify for a mortgage based on lack of credit and income, and that she became homeless after the sale and that the situation was traumatic for her. She keeps acting like a nahal and blaming everything on her trauma. I'm so sick of listening to her retell the events this way so many times. So would I be the a-hole if I point out that many people would have been very grateful for years of free living, that she was never homeless, and that she's acting spoiled? Not the a-hole. 1. She was never homeless. 2. She could move back to her parents' house. Not everyone can. 3. She's been living for free for a few years. That's already a big benefit. Yeah, to her, it may seem bad because she was used to the comfort, but it's not traumatic at all objectively. She's still living for free. Basically, her free home got smaller. Now she only has a free room, and likely free meals, etc., with shared use of all the main areas instead of an entire free house to herself. She didn't even have to pack. Enablers Opie and Dad came and did it for her. I'm not entirely sure Opie and the dad should be called enablers. The purchase agreement between the seller and buyer may have contained a clause that the home is vacant prior to closing. This is so the new owner doesn't inherit the tenant and have to deal with evicting her and all that which goes with it. Also, there could be financial issues for the seller/dad. Sale falls through, reimbursing buyer expenses, inspections, etc. Maybe storage fees for the buyer's belongings and hotel rooms for buyer until they can move in possibly. It would be easier for the dad, and Opie, to pack the daughter's stuff. Not the a-hole, but why are you still friends with someone like that? She would benefit from being cut off from you and her parents ASAP. Believe it or not, we did used to have good times together. But lately she has just been acting very rude and blaming everything on her trauma, and using that as an excuse for being rude. Maybe suggest for her to go to talk to a therapist about it? I feel like one big thing must have triggered all this, to be honest. And maybe she just doesn't realize she needs to talk to a professional. Not the a-hole. At first, I thought it was going to be something, and I was going to say people have different experiences. But no, this is her just being spoiled and kinda lazy. Next story. Am I the a-hole for sticking by my no family policy? I, 52 female, inherited some money and decided to invest some of it in properties to rent out. Things were good for a few years, so when a cousin of mine approached me about renting in one of my apartments, I agreed, but only under the condition that they pay the same amount of rent as everyone else. My cousin agreed. In the first year, everything was good, until they hit hard times and were begging for leniency. They were family and had kids, so I decided to work with them a little as I was told that this was only temporarily. They still paid me something regularly, but only paid the market value once every 3 months. Because again, times were hard. And anytime I tried to speak to them about it, they would give me some sob story. And I would get pressure from other members of the family because they accidentally found out. For 2 more years, I put up with this crap. Until I found out that not only did my cousin bounce back about 6 months from when they asked the first time, but they were doing better than ever, and bragged about how they could get away with paying less rent. How did I find out? The wife posted pictures of a trip in social media because she loves to brag. When I confronted them, they tried to say that the trip was paid for by someone else, but when they refused to provide proof, I hit them with an eviction. As predicted, they sent the flying monkeys after me, but drew out the eviction process as long as possible. In the end, I managed to get them out, but not after they did some damage on the way out. I'm still angry and refuse to talk to my cousin or his wife to this very day. After that, I made a no family policy and made it known to relatives that while I would recommend them other places to rent, they could never rent with me. Everyone eventually seemed to get it, or at the very least stop pestering me about it, until I was approached by another cousin, other side of the family, and asked if she could rent for me. I told a gentle but firm no, and explained my reasonings. She seemed disappointed but didn't bring it up. However, I did get an earful from her mother told me that it wasn't even their side of the family that screwed me over, so they shouldn't be punished. Am I the a-hole? Now for the comments. Not the a-hole. The mom's reaction just solidifies why you have that policy. She feels entitled. Pretty much guaranteed to have the same issue if you rent to her. Not the a-hole. You're not going to have a similar experience. You already have had it thanks to the mom's reaction. Respond, I appreciate you proving my point with the action you chose to take. You made a decision to inappropriately insert yourself into a legal agreement to demand special treatment. Your message is a perfect example of the exact reason I do not rent a family. Thank you for giving me such a reminder. Not the a-hole. You learned why it's often a bad idea to do business with, or lend money to, family. If people can't respect that boundary, it's on them. Not the a-hole. Never do business with family. Business of any kind. Don't give them loans, don't sell them stuff, or buy stuff from them. None of it is ever worth it. If you want to just give a family member money as a gift, fine. But as soon as it becomes about a loan or a business of any kind, it'll just cause problems. I agree. You can call it a loan, but be prepared for it to become a gift with no hard feelings. If you aren't good with that outcome, you should always say no. Not the a-hole. The rental process between me and a potential tenant is just that, between me and the potential tenant. The fact that you are involving yourself in something that is frankly none of your business is exactly why I have this no family policy in place. I'm sorry your daughter was disappointed, but you are exhibiting exactly the behavior that contributed to this policy in the first place. Last story is titled, Am I the a-hole for not helping my sister who currently could be homeless? My sister and I didn't have the best relationship growing up. She spread lies and rumors about me, and she did cause 2 of my breakups and was always my parents' favorite kid. My parents eventually disowned me, and I quickly cut them from my life and paved my own path. I would say I'm pretty successful. I do own multiple properties throughout the US, including one next to my old home where she still lives. The house is currently vacant for personal reasons, but I do go there often enough to prevent squatting. My sister recently called me up, presumably finding my number from the internet, asking if I could help her. She went on this whole spiel about how her boyfriend was abusive and so forth. I mean, it is probably true, but karma. I just simply replied, "Oh, that sucks," and hung up. I did not need her in my life anymore. She called me again a week ago, and I simply asked if she had any friends that she could go with. And she said that she lost most of her friends, and the person who she is currently living with has to move. She knows I own property, and she asked if she could use it. She says that since I already pay property tax, that her living there would do nothing. I mean, I could probably afford it, but out of literally any person in the world, I would not let her there. I would literally rather it burn down. So I just said no, and if she did come to the property, that I would call the cops. I do live about an hour away in the city, not across the country. I just told a couple of friends, and I hoped they would enjoy the schadenfreude with me. Not all of them, but a couple told me that I was unnecessarily being a jerk, and that I should have some empathy for her since our parents passed away and she was close to them. Not A-hole. Why are the stable siblings/children always supposed to rescue the messed up siblings/parents? As someone who has a sibling like that living with me right now, I wonder this all the damn time. Give your messed up sibling a move-out timeline and enforce it. I finally have, thankfully. There's a light at the end of the tunnel. The tunnel would have been further away, but he refuses to go to therapy and deal with his mental illnesses, and he has opportunities to work again. So I'm less willing to have my life ruined. I didn't want him homeless during the worst of the pandemic and the rest of our family died, so I was patient for a while, but I'm not going to deal with someone being emotionally abusive when they refuse to help. No a-holes here. She wasn't really an a-hole for asking. You were fine for saying no. You really shouldn't expect other people, though, to celebrate a mistreated victim having nowhere to go. And it sounds a lot like your parents played favorites and had a golden child/scapegoat dynamic. Which means that you were likely both mistreated children, and her early bad behaviors towards you are manifestations from the parental mistreatment. It doesn't mean you need to forgive her or be nice to her, but it does mean you shouldn't expect other people to feel good about her being hurt further. Yes, being the scapegoat hurts worse, but being the golden child is also a form of child mistreatment generally. Yep, this. I agree the OP was likely hurt more growing up and would never expect someone to take in a sibling, or anyone, with this dynamic in history. If I were friends with the OP, I would 100% support their decision to not help their sibling out. They're just not the person for this, and they absolutely owe her nothing. But I would also think it would be a jerk move to expect me, as a friend, to feel great that a mistreated woman had nowhere to go, especially when the dynamic the OP describes with her parents. Not a-hole with a caveat. Not wanting your sister in your life for reasons is perfectly acceptable. Gloating to your mates over it doesn't seem like the classiest of moves, however. Were they aware of the status of your relationship with your sister, or was this news to them? In any case, you can keep her out of your life without necessarily being smug or triumphant about it. Update. Me 25 female with my fiancé 25 male, arguing over our wedding budget might end our relationship. Original post. My fiancé and I have been together for 4 years, and everything has been great up until now. We've always been in agreement about our lives and what we want for the future. Finances has always been one thing that we agreed on the most. Monthly budget, not buying excessively, living within our means, and finances including the wedding. He's always known from early on that I love big weddings and always wanted to have one, and that would be an area that I would splurge a little on. He was always supportive of this and in agreement with me and said that he'd like one too. In October, we got engaged and things were great until we started the wedding planning. We were just getting the basics done and mainly doing research into prices, and we discovered that we didn't have quite as much money as we would like to have for a big wedding. And we were both disappointed, but started looking into how we could scale back and stretch our budget in the most efficient way possible. Then, in the beginning of November, my parents gave us a hefty chunk of money for the wedding and all of the other expenses that go along with it, including the honeymoon and the engagement party and the bridal shower, all of the good stuff we weren't going to get to have before in our budget, and possibly even have some leftover. The only things that we would have to pay for would be our bachelor/bachelorette parties. We were insanely excited and grateful. And my fiancé even commented that now we could have the wedding of our dreams, and we went planning in our merry excited way. At Thanksgiving, my fiancé went to visit his family on the opposite side of the country, but I wasn't able to go with him. And when he came back from that trip, he seemed more standoffish about the wedding, and pretty much stopped helping me plan it. When I asked him why, he said that he was just tired, and I let it go. Then when he got back into helping me plan it, he was suddenly against having a big wedding, despite what we'd previously talked about and planned. He said that having a large wedding seemed like an annoying waste of money, which was news to me because I'd always been excited about having said wedding. Then it progressed to him saying that having a big wedding would make his family uncomfortable and make them feel out of place because they didn't grow up with/around lots of grand things. He also said that his family wouldn't be able to fly out for the wedding. So I proposed that we take some of the money out of the big wedding and have another, much smaller ceremony at a reception, where his family would be comfortable and within a reasonable driving distance. He said no, F that, let's just have a smaller wedding to begin with. When I asked why, he would never give me a legit reason. He would always dance around a question and cause an argument that was off the topic of the wedding. We stopped planning the wedding and things were pretty strained for the next little bit of time up until Christmas. We flew out to see his family, and they weren't very welcoming towards me at all. Christmas Day was basically just them being condescending about the budget and wedding in general, including opening presents where they would make comments about if it was good enough for me, which was shocking because that's never been an issue in any interaction we'd ever had, or in my life in general. The whole day just basically went like that. When we got back to our hotel, I asked my fiancé what the heck all of that was about. He pretended to not know for a while. Then he told me that when he went for Thanksgiving, he told them about the wedding budget and they said that it was too much for a wedding. And they didn't want to come because they felt it would be uppity, flashy, and arrogant. When I asked him if he defended what was originally our choice, he exploded and told me that he felt that the big wedding budget was materialistic and ridiculous. When I asked how it was materialistic, he said that it just was and that he was sick of my materialistic behavior. Again, I asked what he meant by that. And he said that me liking high-end stuff and getting my nails and hair done was materialistic behavior. This confused me too because while I like nicer things, it's never been a requirement. And I don't demand that everything I have be expensive and high-end, and I don't care about how much money a person has or makes or anything like that. Plus, when I do buy stuff for myself, it's from my own personal money in my own bank account that I deposit money in after all of the bills and necessities with my fiancé have been taken care of. I've never once asked my fiancé or anyone else to pay for any of that stuff, and me spending money from that account isn't a regular occurrence whatsoever. My fiancé even has his own separate account for things he wants and likes too. Then he jumped back to the wedding and said that he finds it stupid and irresponsible to spend thousands of dollars in one day just to get a piece of paper that we could get at a courthouse. He also kept mentioning that we could spend the money elsewhere. When I asked what exactly he meant by elsewhere, he didn't have an answer and just kept saying that we could spend it on better things, like a new house or cars or something. We bought a nice house 2 years ago, so that argument was out. We each have nice running cars, so that was out. And we can't have kids, so that's out too. And when I brought all of that up to him, he just stormed out. We're back home now and we haven't talked about it because every time I bring it up, he gets pissed and storms out of the room and shuts me down. His behavior in this whole situation and lack of communication with me makes me nervous because something is going on, but I don't know what. If he keeps continuing this way, I don't want to get married to him because I don't know if our future would be like this with other things. It's not about not wanting the wedding, it's just his attitude and the way that he's gone about everything. Now for the top advice before reading the first update. Am I the only person who thinks it would be really rude to take money your parents gave you for the wedding and spend the majority of it on something else? I know that there are a range of opinions in how much input paying for a wedding gives parents/other parties the right to make decisions about wedding details. But if I gave someone, say, $20,000 for the wedding and all of the other expenses that go along with it, including the honeymoon and the engagement party and bridal shower, and they had a $5,000 wedding and spent $15,000 on a new car without consulting me, or offering to give the rest back, I feel like I'd be a bit annoyed. I think you need to tell your fiancé that whatever money your parents gave you that isn't spent on the wedding will be returned to them. I'd be interested to hear his reaction to that. This is the only responsible way to handle their money that was specifically set up for one line item, the wedding. I would be curious what OP's history was with a significant other's family as well, since this would be odd behavior to see out of the blue. Yes to that. I think the fiancé's family want all the money for whatever greedy reasons they have in mind. It sounds like they did a number on this guy when he visited, laying a massive guilt trip on him and turning him against the whole big wedding idea. It should be made perfectly clear that whatever money isn't used for the wedding will be returned to her parents. It sounds like his parents felt inferior because they couldn't contribute like your parents could, and instead of accepting it graciously, they worked on your fiancé and turned him against the wedding and you. This is about a hell of a lot more than a wedding. Return the money to your parents with thanks and call off the wedding for now. if you can't communicate about this. If his response to disagreement is to turn on you, I don't see how this is going to work. This, especially after Opie's parents chipped in a huge amount and her fiancé's parents couldn't. His parents don't want to accept that they're too poor to contribute as much as Opie's parents, so they have to rationalize some other reason they won't chip in as much. Cognitive dissonance is a hell of a thing. Now for the first update. Thank you to all who offered advice the last time. I took some suggestions and they definitely helped bring the situation to a point. About 2 days after I made the first post, my fiancé and I got into a really huge argument, and I figured out that he did want to send the money to his family. He came home and I told him that we were going to talk about what was going on, and this time no amount of arguing was going to change the subject. As soon as I said that, we started arguing again, but he kept telling me that the money should be used elsewhere. I told him that my parents gave us the money solely for the wedding, and that any money we didn't use was going back to them, unless they just insisted that we keep it. End of story. He demanded that we just ask my parents if we could keep the money and put it toward other uses. And I told him that I wasn't doing that, and especially if he wouldn't even tell me what those other uses were. He finally broke and said that he felt it was wrong to have a big wedding when his family could use the money for more practical and useful things. When I asked him what those things were, he meant sending his brother to the college of his dreams out of state. He said that over Thanksgiving when he was with his family, he was telling them about the wedding and the money that my parents had given us, which really wasn't necessary and shouldn't have been discussed in the first place. And his family started telling him about the college his brother wanted to go to and how they couldn't afford it. It really felt bad for limiting him. Then, according to my fiancé, they began asking him how he could go through with a wedding using all of the money that could be used to help pay for some of his brother's schooling and take some of the weight and stress off of their shoulders. He started feeling guilty and they pointed the blame towards me. And because he didn't want to feel guilty, he went along with it and basically agreed with them and told them they were right when they said that they didn't want to come to a wedding and support someone who didn't want to help them. Just conveniently leaving out the fact that I had no clue how bad their financial situation was, and also that the wedding was a mutual decision. And he said that the reason he was so standoffish and kept lashing out at me whenever I tried to talk to him about it was because he felt bad that he'd changed our plans without talking to me and let me take the blame for something that really shouldn't have involved blame in the first place. When we started discussing why he didn't tell me all of this and apologized from the very beginning when all of it happened, he just said that he didn't feel like it and was going to try to find out a way that he could use some of the money while also giving us both a wedding we were content with. I was, and still am, furious that not only was he okay with throwing me under the bus, but also hiding huge expenses from me. So willing to change our plans without so much as mentioning it to me, and was willing to insult, berate, and hurt me to get his way. When I told him how I felt about all of that, he actually said that he was sorry about that but was happy that he told me, so that I could see his side and we could compromise by cutting back the wedding and take the rest of the money and put it toward his brother. I guess he felt like I would change my mind about everything now that he'd come clean about everything, but when I told him that the money was still absolutely going back to my parents, he got pissed again because they don't need it anyways. We got into an even bigger fight about everything, and we decided to call the wedding off indefinitely until we sort through things. But right now, I'm not even 100% sure that I want to go through with the marriage at all, especially if this is going to be what our future holds. Now for more advice before reading the last update. Holy smokes! I think you did the right thing by calling the wedding off. A marriage is supposed to be a partnership, you and me against the world. He has displayed some very poor judgments here. His behavior basically told you that he puts his family above you. That's not how things are supposed to go. Next, you guys are going to agree to only have you two in the room when you give birth. His mother throws a hissy fit and wants the entire family there, and he supports them, not you. You guys then agree his parents can only visit twice per year. They show up unannounced for a 3-month-long visit and you want them to get a hotel. He gets mad at you and his parents end up staying and criticize everything you do. Then the parents move in. I suspect something like this was going on. I don't see why he should feel in any way that your parents should pay to send his brother to college. WTF? Exactly. The brother can go to another school that his family can afford instead, just like almost every other college student out there. Exactly. Obi's parents have given her the money to spend on a wedding. They have not given her the money to put someone else's kid through college. It would be a totally different matter if Obi wanted to spend her and her significant other's joint money on a huge wedding. But the fact is, the money belongs to Obi's parents, and they gave it with the intention of Obi having the wedding of her dreams, and that is the only thing it should be used for. I'm so sorry it's ended up like this, and I think you have made a right decision in calling off the wedding for now. I hope you find happiness and peace in the future through whichever path you take. Best of luck. Now for the final update. Since the last update, my fiancé and I were trying to resolve things, and even got into 2 therapy sessions, and it seemed like things were looking up, and we were on our way to repairing our relationship even though it was a slow process. We went in for our 3rd therapy session and started discussing in deeper detail more about his family and the money issues. We were talking through it, and he still didn't understand why we couldn't just take the money my parents gave us and help his brother, because it technically was a gift. When I told him, again, that we weren't using the money for anything other than the wedding, if we even have a wedding, and I suggested that we use our personal money if we were going to help them, he completely ignored the last part and started yelling at me how selfish my family was because we were unwilling to help his family. He's never asked for serious help for his family before, and when he even asked at all, I helped them. When I pointed the fact that all he had to do was ask but he never did, he said that he shouldn't have to ask for help for our family, but that I should see that they were struggling and want to help them instead of having to be asked. When I told him that I couldn't read his mind, we got into a huge argument in the therapist's office, and he stormed out in the middle of the session. I followed him out and we argued more in the car. Then when we got back to the house, we continued arguing, and he said that he fought so hard for his family because his brother was the last chance they had. When I asked what that meant, he said that I should be trying to help them too, as it would be the least I could do since his brother was basically their only chance at expanding the family since I couldn't have kids. Then we got into a completely different argument about kids and how I can't have them. Before we even started seriously dating, we talked about kids. And before we found out that I couldn't have them, we both agreed that we didn't want them whether they were adopted or not. Then we found out that I couldn't have them for medical reasons, and we talked about it again. And we were both in agreement that we still didn't want them. Apparently, his parents have been pressuring him about that too. But again, instead of talking to me, he thought I'd change my mind later down the road. We got into a really awful argument, the worst one we've ever had, and it got a bit physical. I kicked him out and we officially ended our relationship the day after. I'm not sure what we're going to do about the house situation. It's in my name, but he doesn't really have anywhere to go. But I do know that our relationship is over for now, if not forever. It's in my name, but he doesn't really have anywhere to go. And that, my darling, is no longer your issue to worry about. He can move back in with his parents. It shouldn't be a problem since he values their opinions and input so much. My thoughts exactly. The way he's not wasting his money on rent, it can go straight to more important uses. So, his family feel entitled to your financial support for their other child because you can't give them grandchildren to which they feel entitled? And your fiancé feels entitled to put that crap on you. Wow. I hope you feel suitably entitled to cut their entitled butts out of your life forever, not just for now. Seriously, because finding out you can't have kids even if you decided you did want them isn't hard enough. His parents just went ahead and made her feel even worse. Talk about selfish, entitled a-holes. Good. He's a gold digger. And his family have their excavators at ready too. Does anyone think that sending the brother to college will solve all problems these people have, financial or otherwise? I think my husband's mistress thinks he is richer than he actually is. My best friend thinks I'm a douche because I'm keeping silent. Plus update. Original post. Husband in quotes because we are not married legally. He's 39, me 39, mistress 29, and best friend 39. We have been together for 14 years, living together for 11. He came and told me that he was in love about 3 weeks ago. I was surprised at the lack of care I had to give at receiving such information. I did love him, but maybe my love has always been conditional, and its survival depends on it being reciprocated, because it literally vanished the second he confessed to me that he was in love with another woman. He didn't want the separation, but to maybe open the relationship, or let his feelings for her subside. But I said it was over. It was like I never had feelings for him ever. He was taken aback by my indifference, which I thought, the audacity. Did he want me to be hurt and suffer? I told him that he should be relieved that he didn't cause pain. Instead, he has been sulking since. Last Friday I got home and Mistress was there, sitting in my kitchen sipping my tea. I felt nauseous because, seriously? I told him that this wasn't civil at all, and to never be in my home again or I would call the cops. I went to my room and I heard her yelling at him for not standing up for her. Then I heard her say something very curious. Why haven't you kicked her out yet? He was trying to tell her to lower her voice, whispering, "Later, we can discuss this later." She left and he came to me apologizing. He said, "We didn't have here if this is what you are scared of. She just dropped by because I was working from home today." I told him that he had until the end of March to move out and to find somewhere to be during the weekends. This morning, I changed all the locks. From now on, he isn't allowed in my place during my working hours. So if he starts later or finishes earlier, he needs to wait for me to come home and let him in. But his mistress word stuck with me. So during the weekend, I have been stalking her social media. I think she thinks that he is rich, or at least that he owns my apartment. I think she also thinks that my parents' summer house and boat are his. Unfortunately, the loser has taken her there, probably bragging about his wealth, because her hashtags were all about the good life. I was telling my best friend all of this, but she was more agitated than indignant on my behalf. She told me that he was a scum, not telling his mistress the truth. I agreed. I know, right? But then she said I was no better not explaining to her his situation either. I was dumbfounded, but she was serious. I told her that it wasn't my job to bring back Mistress to Earth, and my best friend got very angry and demanded that I gave her Mistress's username so that she could warn her. "No," I said, and she called me a bigger douche than he is then. I don't know what's going on with these people. Have they gone mad, or have I? When did our moral compass go askew like this? Can someone tell me that I am not insane? Now for the top advice before reading the update. Nope, not wrong. Get rid of him and wash your hands. Your bestie sounds delusional. Phew, because I thought something was wrong with me when she got upset. OP, she just demanded that your ex kick you out of your home so that she can move in. Do you really think someone like that deserves the kindness of a heads up? Not to mention she has been drinking your ex's Kool-Aid for a while now, and wouldn't believe anything you say anyway, so why waste your time? As for your friend, they are either a current/former mistress, a gold digger, living in the land of sunshine, rainbows, and unicorns, or were never really a friend to you in the first place. When my ex-husband and I had finally decided to divorce, he came to me to ask if I could clear out of the apartment for the weekend so he could have a friend over. I snapped like a tree branch after an ice storm. I said to him, "You want me to clear out of the apartment that I alone pay the rent and bills for so you can have your girlfriend over? You've got balls, I'll give you that." And no, it's not freaking happening. It was the first time he'd seen me genuinely angry and the only time I ever saw him cowed by anything or anyone. Now I regret not having stood up for myself sooner. But what's done is done. OP, kick his butt out of your life. Let him fend for himself, and I suspect he's got a very rude awakening in store. Wow, it is so satisfying to read her response to that. Good for you for standing up. Absolutely. That moment of realization when you know you've had enough and you stand your ground is priceless. It's like suddenly all the nonsense comes into focus, and you're not going to take it anymore. The shock on their faces when they realize the rules have changed is something else. It's good you found your breaking point and put down your foot. Too many stories where that doesn't happen soon enough. Cheers to newfound freedom and self-respect. Lol, you're not responsible for his lies. Kick him out and leave it. He has until the end of March. You also need better friends. What the heck is wrong with you not giving the mistress a heads up? To me, this is a clear case of a fool around and find out. I have a feeling friend has been in mistress's shoes. Lol. Exactly what I was going to say. I'd keep her at an arm's distance. She's too understanding of a homewrecker. Some homewreckers don't know what they are getting themselves into. Don't know the guy is in a relationship or have been fed lies about the nature of the relationship. But the friend is concerned that the woman is getting into a relationship for money with someone who doesn't have any? Those priorities are pretty suspect. Now for the update. I did it. I had a showdown with my former best friend via text, and I confronted her about her non-existent support when I went to her with my woes. I told her that she concentrated on the wrong issue. She should have been my shoulder to cry on. She should have shown up with wine, ice cream, and a shovel. But instead, she called me a bigger douche than my husband. She tried to gaslight me, and I realized that she's always been a good gaslighter, so I interrupted her before she made me out to be the villain. I asked her bluntly, was your husband married when you started sleeping together? You told us that he was married before. We all knew that, but we were all under the impression that he was married and divorced before you two met. But was he still married? Is that why you related to the mistress and felt sympathy for her? Because you were her? She didn't answer me until next day to call me a bitter and jealous bitch. Wow. This was the last one-on-one interaction with her, I have decided. She's been my friend since preschool, but now we need to go our separate ways. Not only to save us from future hurt, but also to save our memories together from hurt. I talked to my husband too, and asked him to not make the separation difficult and bitter that it ruins all the happiness we felt being together, because we cannot think back on 1/3 of our lives with resentment. I asked him to take my dad's offer. He offered to help him find a lease on an apartment and pay half a year's rent if he moved out without giving me problems. When I got home, he and his clothes were gone. He left an apology letter saying that he will always love me and never meant to hurt me. So I have finally been able to cry my eyes out, and it felt so good. I've been crying since I got home. I lost 2 of my closest people, but this is what happens when we hit hardships. We see people's true faces. This is my update. I don't know if anything major will happen to make more updates. It is time for me to move on. Wow, OB, good for you. Your friend is definitely not worth your time, and your soon-to-be ex should be thanking his lucky stars that you are so kind. You've said it quite succinctly. OB is actually kind-hearted to help the cheater out. Much better reaction than I would have had. And I'm happy that she called out her ex-friend's BS. Projecting much, eh? Just like the comments under her previous post said. She was truly something else, that one. OP, good to cry it out. But hopefully there are better things around the corner for you. Good luck. It is not out of kind-heartedness. I can't just kick the man out without a fight or a bribe. If I had started eviction proceedings, I would need at least 6 months to do so, and I didn't want him in my life for this long. So I'm bribing him. Housing is very scarce, and primary lease is almost impossible. My dad has connections with landlords, so he agreed to move out. He is living with his parents now until he gets his contract. I'm happy it didn't get more complicated. This was what my lawyer advised me to do, because taking the eviction route would have made it drag for months. I feel for Opie. How gutting to find out 2 people so close to you are such dirtbags. I hope we get an update where the mistress finds out. Amen. Reminds me of a post I saw yesterday. Girl's friend had phone sex with a married man and didn't see the problem with it. There are 2 types of affair partners. Those that know and those that don't. The latter is whatever, but the former are hell to a man. He left an apology letter saying that he will always love me and never meant to hurt me. Sure was acting like a man who didn't want to hurt her. It looks a lot like he just wanted her to notice him, and went about it with the logic of a 5-year-old. Instead of having a mature conversation and talking about how he felt, he figured having an affair should work. The whole thing is written with such a lack of interest, and the offhand comment about her having her own room, that it sounds like the marriage was dead for a long time. The ex just made it official by being a douche. It all sounds to me like she's not responsible for how much of a prick the ex was, but had a hand in getting to that place. I really don't think she deserved that treatment, but I feel like there is more to the story. The BFF is just bizarre though. It's like she was having an argument about something completely different, while the OP was suffering. Last story. I left my wife and it took her over a week to notice. I, male 35, was married to my wife, female 35, for 8 years. I left her 5 years ago. We are child-free by choice. Her choice. I'd always said we had a good relationship and marriage, but looking back, I see that it was good for her. Here is my story. I've always been the nerdy type. Smart, good grades, but never popular. I am from a very well-off family. Due to my grandparents' inheritance and some smart investments my parents did, I did not have to go to college or work and still have a comfortable life. But I love what I did. I met my wife my first year in college. She was in my class and was looking for a tutor. She was a scholarship kid. We spent more and more time together, but never in the weekend. I wasn't the outgoing type, and she would still go out in the weekend. After a while, we started going on dates, and after I graduated, we got married. Looking back, she started making decisions for us as soon as we got together. My wife worked the first half of our marriage, and when her company downsized, she got laid off. She became a stay-at-home wife who was not at home that much. She had friends she took trips with, had a lot of lunches and dinners with her friends, basically spent my money on her well-off lifestyle. While I remember our love life being passionate in the beginning, it's just that, a memory. When I was 29, I was involved in a car crash. They say a drunk driver totaled my car, but I still have no memory of that day. I was in coma for 2 weeks. After waking up, I had to learn to do a lot again. After 4 months, I went back to work. When I came back home, my wife put me in the spare room. She said it has been like that a while because I was snoring. I kept my mouth shut, but I knew that this was new. The accident somehow gave me clarity of my mind. I could see that a marriage has been over for a while, but I still wanted to see if I could save it. Everything I tried failed. What sealed the deal for me was my 30th birthday. I came home and she was not home. She was having a spa day with her friends. I ordered takeout, watched a movie, and made a decision. The next morning, I went to my lawyer to start drafting divorce papers. I stopped engaging with her unless absolutely necessary. Slowly, I started selling anything that had any emotional value to me. I left all her stuff for her. I bought a new car and left it at a parking garage not so far from our home. 1 month later, all I had left were my clothes and a couple of laptops, projector, portable screen. Everything I needed to work from the road. I did not quit my job. I arranged for it to be completely remote. 2 months after my birthday, I stayed while my wife was at just another lunch with her girls. I took the new car, packed everything I needed in it, left the divorce papers and a letter on my bed in the spare room, and closed the door to my house for the last time, wondering how long it would take for her to notice. I decided to drive across the country and visit every place I wanted to go but couldn't because my wife didn't want to. We had a prenup, so she had no rights to ask anything. In a letter, I explained. I told her I was leaving, and I would leave her the house and a car and would pay a sum every month for exactly a year. After that, she was on her own. In my own stupidity, I forgot to mention why I was leaving, but this would work out in my favor. 10 days after I left, I got a text from my wife asking me where I was and if this was a joke. She called me, but I didn't pick up. I never pick up the phone while driving. I had an automated text sent that said, "I'm driving and will call back later." She sends me text after text after text. That night, I stopped in a motel and decided to read the texts before calling her back. First, she was asking if this was a joke, then asking when I will come back, then begging me to come back, not knowing why I left. And then she said something. She was sorry and it didn't mean anything and that she will cut him off. She was having an affair, something I never suspected. I called her cell phone and she was at her parents'. I learned this tactic from TV. She started yelling at me and I hung up. I waited 1 minute and called back. She started yelling again and I hung up again. I waited 2 minutes and called back again. This time, she wasn't yelling and I started talking. I told her that she was going to let me talk first, and after I said what I needed to say, and then she could ask questions. I told her why I left. We were married but living like roommates. Not even roommates, because they at least acknowledge each other. I don't remember the last time we had a conversation, the last time we did something together. I didn't remember the last time we've been intimate, but I know it was before the accident. I told her that for a month before leaving, I stopped talking and sold everything I had in the house, and she didn't even notice. That it took her 10 days after I left before she noticed I was gone. If she had called me on the day I left, I would have turned around immediately. I ended with, "Thank you for admitting to the affair. I really didn't know about that." She tried to apologize, and when she asked me to come back, I asked her why. If she could explain to me why I would consider it. What was in it for me? What would change? She couldn't answer. So I said goodbye and told her my lawyer knows how to contact me. Then I blocked her. The next day, I bought a new phone with a new number and left the old one in the motel. 2 weeks later, I got an email from my lawyer that the divorce papers were signed. I was free. I kept my word. My lawyer already had all documents signed by me that would transfer ownership of the house and the cars to her. The bank automatically deposits a fixed amount to our shared account every month for a year. Where we are now. For the past 5 years, I have been driving across the country, working remotely. I finally had a reason to start social media. I posted online where I've been and where I'm going. I stay in a place for a couple of weeks and drive to the next. My ex-wife started following me on Instagram a year after I left, and out of curiosity, I looked at her public posts. I'm not planning on following her back. She posted pictures with her boyfriend soon after I left. To her credit, she did not badmouth me, at least not on Instagram. 2 months after I left, they apparently broke up. That was the last time I really had an update of her. I also have a life now. Once I put myself out there, it turned out to be easier to have casual hookups. No committed relationship. Now, after years, I'm going back to my hometown. There is a reunion I want to attend. I'm staying for a month, maybe 2, and then I'm going to Canada. I have no plans of looking up my ex, but I will also not actively avoid her. If I see her, I'll see her. If I don't, I don't. Crazy story. This is a happy way for getting back on your own legs. Don't even meet her. She is selfish and horrible. Don't waste your time with her. She's a gold digger. Good story. You realized something was wrong and decided to leave your wife. That was smart. But I think that before the accident, she had her adventures. After the accident, when she decided to have you move into the guest room, she didn't want to be unfaithful to her lover with you. Why did you leave her your house? As someone that recently got out of an abusive marriage, you have no idea how much more mental anguish and loss of physical time and energy I would have had to endure if I tried fighting for anything extra for my ex-wife. What I would have to go through to get the apartment and a car was not worth the stress and anxiety and fear of her retaliating. Simply walking away and starting over from nothing was so much better for me. And I'm sure Opie felt the same, though he at least had more backing to start off with than I did. Update 2. My stepdad turned my family against me. If you haven't watched the first part of this story yet, click the card above or the link in the description. Now for the second update. Alright, sorry for the delay everyone. Work has been busy, and I just got home this past weekend. I sat on that message from what it turns out was, in fact, my stepfather. My curiosity got the better of me, and I called him. I did do what some had suggested, and recorded a call using a different app. I wish I could say the call provided me something, but that would be disingenuous. Hearing his voice made my skin crawl. He asked how I was, and I told him to cut the nonsense, and he laughed. Nothing incriminating on his end, of course. Talk was about 3 minutes long, about nothing. I did ask him why he wasn't content with me being with her, and he said I wasn't man enough, and that a woman like her would have been wasted on me. He has a very traditional way of thinking relationship-wise, which is especially funny because it shows how much he never knew about our relationship, or her in general. Without going off on a tangent, my ex was/is pretty notably against gender norms. She has a very well-paying job and told me she'd never be comfortable being a stay-at-home mom/wife. She even often took the initiative for stuff in our relationship, etc. There wasn't really much to take away from the conversation other than that. I don't really know what he wanted, but I told him not to call me again and hung up. Not very eventful in that front. I flew back home prior to the weekend last week and went to my uncle's birthday party. Had a good time, and the family was very welcoming and apologetic for not being more supportive after everything. None of them were ever rude or anything. I've got no negative feelings towards any of them. I then talked with my brother and set up a meeting at his place with my ex and mother on Wednesday night. On Wednesday, I went over there and got what I expected. Lots of tears, lots of apologies. I admittedly had a tough time keeping it together. I talked with both of them and my brother all independently. Mom has already filed for divorce, which is good, and I appreciate her doing so. We had a decent conversation. You can tell it's strained, but I think we're making some progress towards healing. My brother and I had a good talk. He apologized for everything that had happened, and I accepted it. Can definitely tell he feels remorse for how it all shook out. And for the work he put in to make it right, I definitely don't hold a grudge. My ex and I had a very long discussion through most of the night. We'd been talking over the phone for the last couple weeks already. A lot of it was just catching up. We're obviously two very different people now after nearly a year and a half apart. We had some more serious discussions later on about everything. About how screwed up it all was and how broken I was by it all. She told me she'd already seen a therapist and asked if I would be willing to come with her to her appointment Thursday. She's gone above and beyond for everything I could have asked of her the last few weeks, and I'm really truly appreciative of it. I went with her to her therapy appointment, which I feel was very productive for everyone. Her therapist seemed to be very appreciative of me being there as well. So we stayed talking for a while after, and I decided to ask if she wanted to go out Saturday night. So that's the plan right now. I don't know exactly what's going to happen, but I wanted to show her that I appreciate the effort she's putting in to try and mend what's been broken. And selfishly, I'd like to see her in a setting that isn't like the ones we've been in. That's the update for now. Things are looking up. Haven't seen any of my stepdad or his family since getting home. Appreciate all the support from everyone. We'll update with anything new. Now for the comments. I really want to believe that she changed. It isn't that gullible anymore and won't fall again for such BS if anyone would ever try again. Because it seems that you really want to get back in a relationship with her. If you think that getting back together is the best thing to do, then it's your choice. Up to you. Hopefully things will be okay from now on. I'd like to, yes. That said, I'm still wary of it all. And I imagine will be for quite a long time naturally. I read your story recently, and I was so angry about your despicable soon-to-be ex-stepfather. I know it's probably going to take some time to mend what can be mended, and some things will probably hurt for some time, but I'm glad for you and how things are getting better. And am I correct in the understanding that your brother is who used to be your stepbrother? Because that's a point in your story that surprised me. As soon as you saw what length he went to reach out to you, you dropped the step. In any case, hope things go better for you as time goes. He is. It was actually accidental at first, but I certainly think he's earned that now. So wait, is brother still dating ex, or did he step back once everything came out? They aren't dating. Went on 2 dates at the suggestion of stepdad, but both felt gross about it. I'm honestly a bit concerned that because you don't have a strong support system, you let your mother and ex too fast back into your life. I would never trust them to have my back like a family should, ever again. Mama's already filed for divorce, which is good, and I appreciate her doing so. Why are you appreciative? This is a bare minimum, and mostly self-serving to get rid of a liar. If she didn't do this, she would be a monster. But if she does it, she stays a terrible mother and person. The same goes for you being appreciative of your ex trying to mend things. Not saying they can't change, but I would stay low contact for years to come and see if they seriously want to change. I'm appreciative because they've done all I've asked of them in the past few weeks. I'm communicating and trying to mend some things, but I'm still living across the country. It's more just a timing thing than anything else that I'm home this quick. At the end of the day, I'm not going to be with them because I'll be living so far away. They're gonna have to make that effort, and assuming they do so, I'll give them the time to try to fix things. Next story. Update. A woman I'm dating posted my picture to an online cheaters page. I, 36 male, met Danielle, 33 female, on a dating app and we immediately hit it off. Conversation was super easy for us, so we swapped numbers and spent the next 2 weeks texting and talking on the phone. I explained early on that I want to take my time, because not only am I looking for something serious, but also have work commitments the next few months. I work in tech product sales, which can be very busy. It also involved me leaving the city for a few days at a time. She said she understood and was also looking for something long-term. Great. We met the weekend before Valentine's and had a nice restaurant date followed by dessert and coffee. We finished with a kiss, and I walked her back to her car. It was definitely the best date I've been on since my last relationship. The next day, I called her to say I was looking forward to seeing her again and would plan something when I get back. Now, I live in a major North American city, and from the 15th to 17th, I was booked 3 hours away for an on-site client meetings. I told her about this and let her know that we'd keep in touch. On a Friday I'm due to get back, I get a message from a close female friend asking who I angered. I have no clue what she's talking about, so she sends me a screenshot of my photo on what looks like a Facebook page and tells me it's a private group where women call out men for cheating. It's called Are We Dating the Same Guy? And this particular group is just for people from my city. In the screenshot, multiple people are posting under my picture with mostly harmless comments like, "Oh, I went on a date with him years ago. He was okay." But there were others like, "PM me for the tea." And one woman said, "He's an angry a-hole. Stay away for your safety." Because it's Facebook, I instantly recognized her name as someone I went on a date with the last summer who I had to block after she repeatedly tried to sell me her cat. Absolute lunatic. A few things about me. I am single. I've never been married and my last relationship was over a year ago. I'm very selective, and Danielle was the first date I'd been on since the end of summer. I'm also a very private person. I don't use social media and I don't kiss and tell. So the fact that my photo is on this site is mortifying. What makes matters worse is when I got home, I started getting texts from a bunch of other people I know, either laughing at me or calling me a womanizer. As of now, I'm aware that several female friends have seen it. One coworker, my sister, and a woman I know who lives in the same building as me that excitedly grabbed me when I was leaving this morning to tell me, "I saw you in that Facebook group." Apparently, it's a lot more popular than I realized. There's only one person who would have the motivation to do this, so I called Danielle on the weekend and asked her. Initially, she denied it, but after some prodding, that flipped to apparently her friend posting it. Why? Because a few of them had gotten tipsy together on Valentine's as they are all single. My name came up after her friends asked why she wasn't with me that night after the great date she'd told them about. Apparently, me not being around as I was leaving early the next morning for work was suspicious, as was the fact we'd been talking for multiple weeks but she'd never seen my place. She gave them a picture I used on the dating app, and one of them posted it. She told me she was sorry, but that seemed too good to be true. Her last relationship ended due to cheating, and she wanted to make sure I wasn't married or in a relationship. I told her I needed some time to think, and would be in touch. That was Saturday. We've been silent until today when I woke up to dozens of messages from her saying things along the lines of, "I'm so sorry," / "I'm so angry with myself for this." And then the real truth. It was her that posted it. She wanted to come completely clean and apologized for lying, telling me she panicked when I confronted her, but she wants it all out now. She sent me screenshots unprovoked of the PM conversations she was having with women in the group about me. Aside from the one head case I mentioned earlier, there was nothing accusatory. But what I couldn't get over was how they were discussing me in such an open manner. It had nothing to do with whether I was single or cheating. It was stuff like, "He took me to this restaurant, he drives this kind of car, this is what his place is like, this is how much money I think he makes." I would never talk about exes or people I've dated like that. And if a guy tried to talk to me about Danielle like that, I'd think he was a freaking weirdo and tell him to stop. My two closest female friends are divided on this, so I'm here for advice. One thinks that women need to protect themselves against predators and violence, and groups like this are necessary. The other is angry on my behalf, because the presumption of men being posted to that group are that their cheaters are sketchy. Otherwise, why would anyone even post them there? I really don't know what to do next. I've never had to deal with anything remotely like this before. I like Danielle, but it was one date. She also lied to me about it at first. This seems like a headache, and we've never even hooked up yet. Is she going to get even more paranoid after that? It doesn't feel like we're compatible. This feels like the past 3 weeks of us talking have been one massive waste, and that actually stings, because she's the first person I've really liked since my ex. Now for the top advice before reading the update. I'm really surprised you're considering moving forward with her after this. She lied to you. She invited judgment of you. She is very vulnerable to the opinions of others. And she is insecure. Insecurity definitely does not bode well with a job that will take you away from home often. This is a lot for one date. And quite frankly, below the maturity level I'd expect of a 33-year-old woman. I think you should let her go. Chalk this up to a story you'll laugh about someday on future dates and get back out there. This woman is insane. Don't walk away. Run. You can try asking her to take it down before you reject her, but don't keep your hopes up. Also, remember that she will likely share your text messages with the public, so be very careful in what you say. One date, and you're already deep in drama? Man, even the crazy ones can normally hide their crazy for at least a few months. But nope, this crazy was already strong on day one. To top it off, she lies when she's confronted with something unpleasant and is projecting BS from past relationships onto you on day one. What advice would you give someone else who told you the same story? Because to me, this sounds like a bunch of red flags all up front. This is what I came to say. That and run. Now for the update. Back with an update, but firstly, a couple of quick notes based on the feedback I got. I don't care if you think my close female friend violated the sanctity of your super cool secret girls only club. As she told me, her loyalties are to me. She's known me since I was a child, and knows that I didn't deserve to have my photo plastered there. I understand that those groups may be necessary in keeping women safe or finding predators, but their moderator should go harder in ensuring that it meets those goals, rather than running a de facto gossip club where innocent people's personal lives are affected. I've had dozens of people reach out with very similar experiences, so perhaps your rules should reflect that rather than just keep boys out. As for the lunatic who wanted to sell me her cat, Cat seemed like a cool dude, but I just wasn't in the market for a pet. He also only had 3 legs, which made him run like a drunken sailor. All cats deserve love, so I hope he got away from her. Some of you alarmingly struggle with concepts of consent. I consented to my photo appearing on a dating app. I did not consent to my photo appearing in a "Is this guy trash" group. These are not the same, and the stigma and assumptions associated with both are vastly different. I really shouldn't have to explain this, but here we are. Regarding me not realizing how big this group was, 3 of the women in my life all found out about it the same way. On Valentine's Day, a radio show ran a segment on it, then it got picked up by blogs and social media. It's even appeared on local television. My friend saw it on Twitter. Another saw a "This guy was dating 12 women" post that got shared and decided to investigate. My sister was texted by her friend about it, and when they all rushed to check the group out, there I was. Great timing. It currently has over 50,000 members. Anyway, moving on. So I decided not to pursue things with Danielle. She took the post down during our radio silence, but it mainly boiled down to just not seeing her in the same light anymore. I can accept that she is genuinely sorry, but I also know how I am, and it wouldn't be fair to either of us. This is supposed to be the honeymoon period. Everything is supposed to be light and cute. Now it's just suspicion and resentment. Not gonna lie, that period between when we first started talking to when I went away on my trip was really great. I looked forward to talking to her. When I would see a text, I got butterflies. When we kissed, it felt electric. Some people said what she did was such an obvious red flag. They were questioning why I was even hesitating. The reason is that I haven't felt like this in some time. My last relationship lasted 5 years, and after we broke up, I legitimately wondered if I could find that spark again. Especially after trying dating apps here and there, and not having much luck finding the right person. I do want to feel that spark again and find my person, but holding on to something that already has these problems before it even starts is the wrong move. Instead, I'm simply happy I got to experience it. Now I know it's out there and possible again, just not with Danielle. But I'll be honest, I did wake up today thinking, hey, you never know. Maybe a couple months down the line I'll think different, and maybe we'll go grab a drink. And then I saw she texted me. To preface, before I left the city for work, she sent me a photo with a message, "Don't forget about me." It was her in a bikini on a summer beach blowing a kiss. She's quite chesty, so it's not exactly safe for work, but there was no nudity. I opened today's text, which reads, "Hey, hope I'm not disturbing you, but I'd like to ask you to delete that picture I sent and do not share it with anyone." WTF? I just replied, "The only copy of that picture is in our chat thread. Do you seriously have this low an opinion of me?" To which she apologized and said she was just making sure. Fine. At first I was annoyed, but then I realized the most important thing. It was a reminder I had made a right decision. So I made another and deleted her number. I can't believe he didn't tell her, "I would never share a photo of you without your consent." What kind of monster would do that? I kind of think he did say it in a classier way. You seriously think that low of me? Implies what she did was low AF. As someone who's been cheated on, I understand Danielle's insecurity and trust issues. The fact that she took it out on OP after one date shows that not only is she nowhere close to ready to date, but she also is giving her ex way too much power. She needs therapy before going into another relationship.